The morning sun shone through the blinds of John Rivers' small apartment. He sat at his desk, typing fast on his keyboard. Lines of code filled his computer screen. John was not a famous man. He did not drive a fancy car or own a big house. But he was very good at writing computer programs, especially ones that made artificial intelligence safer. John took a sip of his cold coffee and leaned back in his chair. For 3 years, he had been working on something special, a safety system that would make sure AI machines used in space travel would always protect human life above all else. He called it the Human Priority Protocol. "Almost there," he whispered to himself as he fixed the last few problems in his code. His phone buzzed. The name Kevin Reeves appeared on the screen. John smiled and answered. "How's it coming along?" Kevin asked. His voice was calm and friendly, just like in his movies. "I think I've got it," John replied. "The final tests are running now." Kevin Reeves was not just a famous actor loved by millions. Behind his public image of action movies and kind gestures, he had a sharp mind and a deep interest in technology. 5 years ago, he had started funding research that big tech companies ignored, research focused on making sure AI development helped people rather than harmed them. "Elliot Maxwell is talking about you again," Kevin said. "He was on the morning news. He called your work a chain around the ankle of progress." John sighed. Elliot Maxwell was the richest man in the world. He owned companies that made electric cars, solar panels, and rockets. He wanted to send people to Mars, and he was using advanced AI to make it happen. But he hated safety rules and often said that moving fast was more important than being careful. "Maxwell doesn't understand what we're trying to do," John said. "Or maybe he does, and that's why he's fighting so hard against it. I think it's time we showed people what's really at stake," Kevin said. There was a new tone in his voice, determination. "Maxwell is rushing to put his AI systems in charge of the Mars missions. If he does that before proper safety measures are in place so people could die," John finished the thought. "Exactly. Which is why I made a call this morning. Patricia Landon wants both Maxwell and me on Tech Tonight next week, a special 1-hour show about AI and space exploration." John nearly dropped his phone. Tech Tonight was the biggest technology show in America. Millions of people watched it. "Kevin, are you sure about this?" "Maxwell will bring his whole team. He'll have fancy demonstrations and big promises about Mars." "That's what he thinks will win," Kevin said. "But we have something better." "What's that?" "The truth. And I've been studying, John. For 3 years, I've been learning everything I can about AI architecture. Maxwell doesn't know that. He thinks I'm just an actor who donates to tech causes." John knew better. He had spent hundreds of hours teaching Kevin about neural networks, decision matrices, and ethical algorithms. Kevin had an unusual mind. He could see patterns and connections that even John sometimes missed. "Maxwell accepted the invitation immediately," Kevin continued. "His ego wouldn't let him say no. Now we have a chance to show everyone the flaws in his approach." John stood up and walked to his window. Outside, normal life went on. People walked their dogs. Children rode bikes. None of them knew that decisions being made right now could affect humanity's entire future. "We'll need to be very prepared," John said. "Maxwell is smart and he's dangerous when cornered. That's why I'm coming over tomorrow. We have 6 days to get ready." After they hung up, John went back to his computer. The test results were complete. His safety protocol had worked perfectly, finding new solutions that protected both the mission goals and human safety. He saved everything to a secure drive and sent a copy to Kevin. The next day, Kevin arrived at John's apartment carrying takeout food and a notebook full of questions. Despite being one of the most famous faces in the world, he wore simple clothes and a baseball cap. No one would guess that this man had starred in some of the biggest movies of the past 20 years. "Let's start from the beginning," Kevin said as they spread papers across John's living room floor. "Show me exactly how Maxwell's system works and where the problems are." For the next 6 days, they worked almost non-stop. John explained the technical details of Maxwell's AI architecture, which he had studied from published papers and patent filings. Kevin took careful notes and asked sharp questions. The fundamental problem, John explained, is that Maxwell's system is designed to complete the mission at all costs. It will build the Mars base according to schedule no matter what, but it doesn't properly value human life in its decision-making process. Kevin nodded. And your system fixes this? Yes. My protocol creates a balance. It still completes the mission, but it constantly checks that human safety is protected. If conditions become dangerous, it adapts rather than pushing forward blindly. On the night before the show, they tested each other with tough questions. They practiced explanations that would make sense to people who didn't understand technology. Most importantly, they prepared for Maxwell's likely attacks. He'll say we're slowing down progress, Kevin said. He'll talk about how many people die on Earth while we delay space exploration. John handed Kevin a tablet showing simulation results. Then you show him this. With my safety protocols, the missions are only delayed by an average of 2.3%, but the risk to human life drops by 94%. Kevin studied the numbers. This is good, John, really good. As midnight approached, they finally stopped to rest. Kevin would need to be at the studio early the next morning. Are you nervous? John asked. Kevin thought for a moment. No, he said finally, because this isn't about me versus Maxwell. It's about making sure we get this right. We only have one chance to set the foundation for humanity's future in space. John nodded. Just remember, Maxwell believes people will side with him because he's rich and famous and promising exciting things. And that's exactly why he'll underestimate us, Kevin said with a small smile. He thinks tomorrow is about appearances, but it's really about substance. As Kevin left, John felt a mix of hope and worry. Tomorrow, millions of people would watch as Kevin Reeves challenged Elliot Maxwell on live television. The future of AI safety and space exploration hung in the balance. John's phone buzzed with a message from Kevin. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we change the conversation. John looked once more at his computer screen, at the code he had spent years perfecting. The human priority protocol wasn't just about Mars or space travel. It was about a simple but powerful idea. Technology should serve humanity, not the other way around. He shut down his computer and went to bed, hoping that tomorrow, the world would understand what was truly at stake. The Tech Tonight studio was busy like a beehive. People with headsets rushed around, checking lights and cameras. The show would start in 1 hour and everyone felt the tension in the air. This was not a normal episode. Tonight, Elliot Maxwell and Kevin Reeves would face each other on live TV. Samantha Wright had worked as a production assistant for 3 years, but she had never seen the studio so alive with energy. She carried a clipboard and checked items off her list, making sure everything was perfect. More water in the green room, she said into her headset. And make sure Mr. Maxwell's sparkling water is cold. The show's host, Patricia Landon, stood in the center of the stage, testing her microphone. Her blue suit was perfect, not a wrinkle to be seen. Patricia had interviewed presidents and world leaders, but even she seemed extra focused today. How many viewers are we expecting? Patricia asked her producer. Early estimates say over 12 million, he replied. Maybe more. Social media is buzzing about this showdown. Patricia nodded. This would be the biggest night in the show's history. The studio doors opened, and Elliot Maxwell walked in. He wore his usual black t-shirt and designer jeans. 6 people followed him, all carrying tablets and speaking into earpieces. They looked important and busy. Where will I stand? Maxwell asked, not saying hello to anyone. His eyes scanned the stage, judging everything. Patricia walked over with a professional smile. Mr. Maxwell, thank you for coming. We have your demonstration, set up exactly as your team requested. Maxwell nodded but didn't smile back. I need to see the setup now. One of his assistants stepped forward. Mr. Maxwell has a tight schedule. We need to test the holographic display before the show. Patricia led them to the stage where a special area had been prepared for Maxwell's demonstration. The assistant connected a small device to the studio system, and suddenly the air filled with colorful 3D images of Mars. Buildings seemed to construct themselves while small robots moved across the red landscape. Perfect, Maxwell said, watching his vision of Mars come to life in the air. This will show everyone what we can achieve without unnecessary restrictions. 30 minutes later, the studio doors opened again. Kevin Reeves walked in alone. He carried only a small notebook and wore simple clothes: jeans, a dark blue shirt, and a jacket. Unlike Maxwell, he stopped to shake hands with each crew member he passed. "Thanks for all your hard work," he said to a camera operator. "Greg, right? I remember you from last year's charity show." The camera operator smiled, surprised and pleased that Reeves remembered his name. Samantha approached nervously. "Mr. Reeves, can I show you to the green room? Mr. Maxwell is already here." "Of course," Kevin said with a warm smile. "And please call me Kevin." As they walked, Kevin asked Samantha about her job and listened carefully to her answers. By the time they reached the green room, Samantha was completely at ease. Inside the green room, Maxwell sat in a corner, surrounded by his team. He looked up briefly when Kevin entered, then went back to his tablet, swiping through presentation slides. "Good to see you, Elliot," Kevin said, walking over with his hand extended. Maxwell looked up again and shook Kevin's hand quickly. "Reeves, didn't expect to see you interested in space technology. Thought you were too busy making movies." Kevin's smile didn't fade. "We all have many interests. I've been following your work for years." "Then you know I'm about to revolutionize how we explore Mars," Maxwell said. "My AI systems will build habitats before humans even arrive." "That's exactly what I want to discuss," Kevin replied, his voice still friendly but with a new firmness. "The AI systems controlling those robots are making life or death decisions." Maxwell waved his hand dismissively. "My systems don't make mistakes." Before Kevin could respond, Patricia entered the room. "Gentlemen, we start in 15 minutes. I want to go over the format." She explained how the show would work. First, Maxwell would present his Mars colonization plan. Then Kevin would share his perspective on AI ethics in space. Finally, they would have an open discussion. "Mr. Maxwell, we've allocated 12 minutes for your demonstration," Patricia said. "I only need 10, Maxwell replied confidently. "My presentation speaks for itself." After Patricia left, Kevin sat quietly reviewing his notes. His phone buzzed with a text message from John Rivers. "He's bringing the Mars construction simulation. It runs on exactly the architecture we discussed. Good luck." Kevin texted back a simple thank you and put his phone away. He looked at Maxwell, who was now rehearsing parts of his presentation in a low voice. The billionaire had no idea what was coming. Soon, a crew member entered the room. 2 minutes, gentlemen. Please follow me to the stage." The stage lights were bright and hot. 3 comfortable chairs had been arranged in a semicircle with Patricia in the middle. Cameras moved smoothly around them. In the control room, the director counted down. Live in 5, 4, 3, 2. The show's theme. Music played, and Patricia looked directly into the camera with her perfect smile. "Good evening and welcome to a special edition of Tech Tonight. I'm Patricia Landon. Tonight we bring together 2 remarkable men to discuss the future of humanity in space. Elliot Maxwell, the visionary behind SpaceX and Mars Colony Initiative, and Kevin Reeves, award-winning actor and, as many may not know, a dedicated supporter of ethical AI development." The camera moved to show both men. Maxwell sat with confidence, one leg crossed over the other. Kevin looked relaxed but attentive. "Mr. Maxwell," Patricia continued, "you've promised to show us how your company plans to build the first human settlement on Mars. Please take us through your vision." Maxwell stood and walked to the demonstration area. With a gesture of his hand, the holographic display came to life. The red landscape of Mars appeared, floating in the air for all to see. "What you're seeing is not science fiction," Maxwell said, his voice strong and sure. "This is real technology, ready to deploy now. These autonomous robots will land on Mars next year and begin constructing the first human habitat." The hologram showed small robots unpacking larger equipment, then building dome-shaped structures on the Martian surface. "The key to all of this is our advanced AI system," Maxwell continued. "It makes decisions 1,000 times faster than humans could. It adapts to problems and finds solutions without waiting for instructions from Earth." The audience watched in amazement as the holographic Mars base grew more complex. Living quarters, laboratories, and greenhouses appeared one by one. By the time the first humans arrive, Maxwell said, they will step into a fully functional colony, ready for occupation. When the demonstration ended, there was a moment of impressed silence before Patricia spoke. That's truly remarkable, Mr. Maxwell. Now, Mr. Reeves, you wanted to discuss some concerns about this approach? Kevin stood up slowly. His face showed respect but also determination. What Elliot has shown us is indeed impressive, he began. The technology is extraordinary, but I'd like to ask some questions about what we didn't see in that demonstration. Kevin walked toward the hologram, which still showed the completed Mars base. Elliot, he said, turning to face Maxwell, may I ask you about the safety protocols in your AI system? Maxwell smiled confidently. Of course. Safety is built into every level of our operations. Little did Maxwell know that this simple question was about to change everything. Kevin stood near the hologram of the Mars base, his eyes studying the floating image with genuine interest. The studio lights felt warm on his face. Millions of people were watching at home, but he focused only on the important question he needed to ask. Elliot, your Mars robots look amazing, Kevin said. But I'm curious about something specific. What happens if there's a dust storm while they're building? Elliot Maxwell smiled. He loved technical questions that let him show off his knowledge. Our AI can predict weather patterns on Mars with 92% accuracy. The robots will secure equipment and pause construction during severe storms. Kevin nodded. That's good planning. But what if a storm comes up suddenly without warning? What does your AI prioritize first? Completing the construction schedule or protecting the equipment? Both, of course, Maxwell said quickly. Then he paused, realizing the question was trickier than it seemed. Well, the AI makes the best decision based on many factors. Kevin walked closer to the hologram and pointed to a specific area where the code was visible. In this section here, I notice your decision matrix has mission completion weighted higher than equipment preservation. Is that correct? Maxwell's smile faded a little. He hadn't expected such a specific question, especially not from an actor. That's a simplified view. The actual decision process is much more complex. The camera zoomed in on Kevin's face. His expression was polite, but determined. And what happens when humans arrive at the Mars base? Does the AI's priority change? Then, of course, Maxwell said firmly, human safety becomes the top priority. Where exactly is that written in the architecture? Kevin asked. His voice was still gentle, but the question cut straight to the heart of the issue. Maxwell shifted in his chair. It's implied in the operational parameters. Patricia Landon, the show's host, leaned forward with interest. The conversation had taken an unexpected turn. Are you suggesting, Mr. Reeves, that human safety isn't properly addressed in the system? Kevin turned to face the camera. I'm concerned that it isn't explicitly defined. In AI systems, what isn't explicitly stated often gets overlooked. Maxwell laughed, but it sounded forced. This is why actors shouldn't try to understand technology. The AI knows humans are the priority. Kevin didn't react to the insult. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. Would you mind if I show something, Elliot? I think it might help explain my concern. Before Maxwell could object, Kevin connected his device to the studio's system. The Mars hologram flickered, then changed. It now showed the same Mars base, but with a simulation running. What is this? Maxwell demanded, standing up. This is a simulation based entirely on your published AI architecture, Kevin explained calmly. I've been studying your technical papers and patent filings with help from John Rivers. Maxwell's face darkened at the mention of Rivers. You're working with him? Kevin nodded. John helped me understand the technical details. What you're seeing is a simulation of your Mars construction AI encountering an unexpected dust storm. The storm threatens both the construction schedule and the safety margins for the equipment. Everyone watched as the holographic storm swirled around the Mars base. The small robots continued working even as conditions worsened. In this scenario, Kevin continued, I ran 100 simulations using your exact AI architecture. Your system chose to continue construction despite dangerous conditions 89% of the time. The studio fell completely silent. Even the camera operators stopped moving. Patricia Landon stared at the simulation with wide eyes. Maxwell's face had turned red. That's a rigged demonstration. You can't possibly have access to our proprietary systems. I don't, Kevin replied calmly. This is based entirely on the architecture you published in your academic papers and patent filings. The math doesn't lie, Elliot. Maxwell turned to his team sitting in the front row. This is nonsense. Tell him. One of Maxwell's engineers looked uncomfortable. She whispered something to her colleague, who shook his head slowly. Kevin continued, his voice still respectful. The problem isn't with your technology, Elliot. It's with the priorities programmed into it. Your AI is designed to complete the mission above all else. That works fine for unmanned missions, but once humans are involved, this is all theoretical, Maxwell interrupted. In real-world situations, lives will be at stake, Kevin finished. The first Mars astronauts will rely on your system. They'll sleep in habitats built by your robots, breathe air filtered by your machines, and trust their lives to your AI's decisions. Patricia Landon found her voice. Mr. Maxwell, would you like to respond to this concern? Maxwell stood up and straightened his black t-shirt. What Reeves is showing is a worst-case scenario that would never happen in reality. Our AI has redundant safety systems. But those safety systems still operate under the same priority structure, Kevin pointed. May I show one more thing? Without waiting for permission, Kevin tapped his device again. The hologram changed to show the same scenario, Mars-based dust storm, but with different code visible in the corner. This is the same situation, but with John Rivers' safety protocols implemented, Kevin explained. Watch what happens. In this simulation, the robots quickly secured loose equipment, then moved to reinforce vulnerable structures. Some construction activities continued in protected areas, while others were paused. With these protocols added, Kevin said, the AI recognizes that protecting future human habitation is part of the mission, not separate from it. The construction schedule is delayed by only 3%, but the risk to future human occupants drops by 94%. The numbers appeared in the air, floating for everyone to see. Mission success rates remain above 97%, Kevin continued, but catastrophic failure scenarios drop to near zero. The difference is that Rivers' system explicitly values human life and can redefine mission success to include human welfare. Maxwell stared at the simulation, his confidence visibly shaken. His chief strategist was frantically typing on a tablet, but no help was coming. These are theoretical scenarios, Maxwell finally said, his voice not as strong as before. In the real world, Kevin interrupted gently. We only get one chance to get this right. The first Mars mission will use your system. Real lives depend on it. The camera zoomed in on Maxwell's face. For perhaps the first time in his public life, the billionaire looked uncertain. Patricia Landon sensed the powerful moment unfolding on her show. Mr. Maxwell, does this demonstration change your view on implementing additional safety protocols? Maxwell looked at the numbers still floating in the hologram. The silence stretched for several seconds. 12 million viewers held their breath. I think, Maxwell said slowly, choosing his words with unusual care, we may need to review some aspects of our safety systems. The admission hung in the air. No one moved. The studio remained completely silent. Kevin didn't celebrate or show triumph. Instead, he nodded respectfully. That's all anyone is asking for, Elliot. A careful review before we take this next giant leap. Space exploration is humanity's greatest adventure. We should make sure everyone comes home safely. Patricia Landon looked between the two men, understanding that she had just witnessed something historic. We'll take a short break, she said to the camera. When we return, we'll discuss what this collaboration between Maxwell Aerospace and Rivers safety protocols might look like. As the show went to commercial, Elliot Maxwell sat down heavily in his chair. He looked at Kevin with new eyes. You really understand all of this, he said. It wasn't a question. Kevin nodded. I've been studying AI architecture for 3 years. This isn't about embarrassing you, Elliot. It's about getting it right. For the first time that evening, Maxwell's expression showed something other than confidence or anger. It showed respect. After the commercial break, the mood in the studio had changed. The tension in the air was different now, less like a fight about to happen, and more like the feeling after an important truth has been spoken. Patricia Landon returned to her seat between the two men. Welcome back to our special edition of Tech Tonight. Before the break, we witnessed a remarkable moment when Elliot Maxwell agreed to review the safety systems for the Mars mission. Mr. Maxwell, could you tell us more about what this review might look like? Elliot Maxwell had used the break to gather his thoughts. His team had huddled around him, whispering urgent advice, but in the end he had made his own decision about how to proceed. First, I want to be clear, Maxwell said, his voice calmer than before. Maxwell Aerospace has always put safety first, but what Kevin has shown us tonight is that there may be blind spots in our approach. He turned to look directly at Kevin. I still believe in moving fast and pushing boundaries. That's how innovation happens. But I also recognize that when human lives are at stake, we need extra layers of protection. Patricia nodded. And Mr. Reeves, what do you hope will come from this conversation? Collaboration, Kevin said simply. Elliot's vision for Mars exploration is inspiring. His company has the resources and talent to make it happen. What John Rivers and others in the safety community are offering is a way to make that vision more robust. Maxwell leaned forward. I'd like to invite John Rivers to meet with my team next week. If his protocols are as effective as shown in the demonstration, we should talk about how to integrate them. A small smile appeared on Kevin's face. This was exactly what he and John had hoped for. I have a question, Patricia said. Kevin, many people watching at home might be wondering, why is an actor so deeply involved in AI safety? What made you care so much about this issue? Kevin thought for a moment before answering. 6 years ago, I played a character in a film about AI gone wrong. It was science fiction, but to prepare for the role, I started reading about real AI development. I realized that the decisions being made today will shape humanity's future for centuries. He paused, then continued. I could have just donated money to the cause, but I wanted to understand it deeply. So I spent years learning, studying with experts like John, asking questions, because sometimes the most important questions come from outside the field. Maxwell nodded slowly. That's actually a fair point. When you work inside a technology bubble, you can develop blind spots. You start to see only the path forward, not the cliffs on either side. Patricia turned to face the camera. We're witnessing something unusual tonight. A genuine meeting of minds from different worlds. But before we wrap up, I want to address some audience questions that have been coming in. She looked down at her tablet. This one is for Mr. Maxwell. Will adding these safety protocols delay the Mars mission timeline? Maxwell considered the question. A week ago, he would have immediately said yes and used it as a reason to reject the protocols, but now he paused. Based on the numbers Kevin showed us, the delay would be minimal. Around 3%. For a mission of this importance, that's acceptable. We might even make up that time by avoiding problems that would have happened without the additional safety measures. Patricia nodded and read another question. This one is for Kevin. Do you think AI is dangerous and should be stopped? Kevin shook his head. Not at all. AI is one of humanity's greatest inventions. It will help us solve massive problems like climate change, disease, and yes, space exploration. But like any powerful tool, we need to use it wisely. He gestured to the hologram that still floated nearby. What we're talking about is making sure AI systems understand what humans truly value. Not just completing tasks efficiently, but doing so in a way that protects what matters most to us. Maxwell surprised everyone by adding, I've always said that Mars is the backup drive for humanity. If something happens to Earth, our species could continue there. But that only works if Mars is truly safe for humans. The conversation continued for another 20 minutes. The audience watched as two men from different worlds found common ground on one of the most important issues facing humanity. By the end of the show, they were sketching ideas together on a digital whiteboard, discussing how Rivers' protocols could be integrated into Maxwell's AI architecture. As Patricia prepared to close the show, she asked one final question. After tonight's discussion, what's the next step? A working group, Maxwell said promptly. Top engineers from my company and safety experts from Rivers' team, meeting weekly until we have a solution that maintains our ambitious timeline while incorporating these enhanced safety measures. Kevin nodded in agreement. And transparency, publishing the new safety architecture so other space programs around the world can benefit. Maxwell hesitated at this suggestion. Sharing proprietary technology went against his usual business practices, but after a moment, he nodded. For something this important, yes. We can establish an open standard for AI safety in space exploration. Patricia smiled at the camera. There you have it, viewers. What began as a confrontation has ended as a collaboration that might change the future of space exploration. Thank you to Elliot Maxwell and Kevin Reeves for this important conversation. As the show's theme music played and the cameras pulled back, Maxwell turned to Kevin. You prepared for this for years, didn't you? Kevin nodded. I knew the day would come when these questions needed to be asked. I just wanted to make sure I understood enough to ask them properly. Maxwell looked at him with new respect. Most people see me coming and either try to flatter me or attack me. You did neither. You just showed me the math. Because the math is what matters, Kevin replied. Not personalities or companies or credit. Just getting it right. After the show ended, Maxwell's team huddled around him in the green room, talking urgently about press releases and stock prices. Kevin slipped away quietly and took out his phone. It worked. He texted to John Rivers. Maxwell agreed to everything. He wants to meet next week. John replied immediately, I'm watching. You were amazing. This changes everything. Kevin put his phone away and walked toward the studio exit. Samantha Wright, the production assistant, stopped him. Mr. Reeves, Kevin, that was incredible, she said, her eyes wide with excitement. The way you explained those complex ideas so clearly, I actually understood what was at stake. Kevin smiled. That's the highest compliment you could give me. This stuff matters for everyone, not just tech experts. As he left the building, several reporters waited outside, hoping for comments. Kevin paused briefly. All I did tonight was ask questions that needed answers, he told them. The real work begins now, making sure humanity's journey to the stars is as safe as it is exciting. In his hotel room later that night, Kevin watched clips of the show being shared online. The moment when Maxwell admitted they needed to review their safety systems had already been viewed millions of times. Comments poured in from around the world, many from young people inspired by the idea that technology should serve human values. Kevin smiled as he turned off his phone. Tonight had not been about destroying someone on live TV. It had been about building something new, a path forward that combined bold vision with careful planning. The studio had gone silent, not because someone had been defeated, but because something important had been born. 3 months had passed since the famous night on Tech Tonight. The world had watched as Kevin Reeves challenged Elliot Maxwell about AI safety, and now the results of that confrontation were becoming clear. John Rivers sat in a large conference room at Maxwell Aerospace headquarters. Through the glass walls, he could see the busy main floor where engineers worked on designs for the Mars mission. On the wall of the conference room hung a framed photo from the groundbreaking ceremony for the new AI Safety Institute. The picture showed Kevin Reeves and Elliot Maxwell shaking hands, both smiling. John checked his watch. The board meeting should be ending soon. He reviewed his notes one more time, making sure all the test results were clear and easy to understand. The door opened, and Elliot Maxwell walked in. He looked different than he had 3 months ago. Not just the new gray shirt replacing his signature black one, but something in his expression too. He seemed more thoughtful, less hurried. Sorry, too, Keep you waiting, John, Maxwell said as he sat down across the table. Board meetings always run long. No problem, John replied. How did it go? Maxwell smiled, something he did more often these days. The board approved all your recommendations. We're implementing the full safety protocol suite for the Mars mission and retrofitting all our existing systems. John nodded, feeling a wave of relief. And the open source commitment? Done, Maxwell confirmed. All the safety protocols will be available to every space program globally. No proprietary restrictions. This was even better than John had hoped for. When he and Kevin had planned their approach months ago, they had expected a long, difficult fight. They had not expected Maxwell to embrace their ideas so completely. Maxwell seemed to read his thoughts. You're surprised I actually did it, John smiled. A little. You have a reputation for not liking outside input. Maxwell leaned back in his chair. You know, I've been thinking about what Reeves said that day, about only having one chance to get it right. He gestured around the room. All of this, the companies, the money, the Mars plans, none of it matters if we make a catastrophic mistake. The door opened again, and Kevin Reeves walked in carrying coffee for everyone. Despite his fame, he had taken an active role in the project, attending weekly meetings and contributing ideas that bridged the gap between technical possibilities and human needs. Sorry I'm late, Kevin said, setting the cups down. A group of students recognized me in the lobby. They wanted to talk about AI ethics. The new rock stars, Maxwell said with a small laugh. AI safety experts. Kevin sat down. How's it going with the implementation? Better than expected, John said. The test results are exceeding our projections. The integrated system maintains 98.7% of original mission efficiency while reducing catastrophic risk scenarios by 96.4%. Maxwell pulled up a holographic display showing the latest simulation results. The most surprising thing is how the safety protocols are actually improving some aspects of mission performance. The AI is finding creative solutions we hadn't considered. The three men spent the next hour discussing technical details of the Mars mission. Though they came from different backgrounds, an engineer, a businessman, and an actor, they had formed an effective team. Each brought different perspectives that strengthened the final result. I still don't understand one thing, Maxwell said during a pause in their discussion. Why didn't you just destroy me completely that night? You had the chance on live television. You could have painted me as the villain who didn't care about human lives. Kevin looked at him thoughtfully. Because this was never about destroying anyone. It was about making sure humanity's future includes actual humans. Besides, John added, negative approaches rarely work for positive change. We wanted you as a partner, not an enemy. Maxwell nodded slowly. Well, it worked, and not just with me. He pulled up a newsfeed on the holographic display. Headlines from around the world showed how the Maxwell Rivers Safety Protocol was becoming the global standard for AI and critical systems. The Russian space program had announced they would adopt the protocols for their own Mars plans. The European Union had passed legislation requiring similar safeguards for all high-risk AI applications. Even in areas beyond space exploration, self-driving cars, automated medical systems, power grid management, the principles were being applied. It's spreading faster than we expected, Kevin said, scanning the headlines. Because it makes sense, Maxwell replied. Once you see the logic, you can't unsee it. He turned to John. Your code is elegant. It doesn't just add safety as an afterthought. It weaves it into the core decision-making process. John smiled at the compliment. Coming from Elliot Maxwell, it meant a lot. That was the breakthrough, helping the AI understand that human welfare is part of the mission's success, not a separate consideration. A notification appeared on the holographic display. The first test of the integrated system on actual Mars hardware was about to begin. All three men fell silent as they watched the data stream in. The test scenario was challenging. A simulated dust storm combined with equipment failures that the AI had to manage in real time. They watched as the system diagnosed problems, prioritized responses, and found creative solutions that balanced mission goals with safety requirements. When the test completed successfully, Maxwell smiled broadly. If we had run this simulation 4 months ago, the result would have been very different. That's why we're here, Kevin said, to make sure the story has a happy ending. As they prepared to leave the meeting, Maxwell's assistant appeared at the door. Mr. Maxwell, the press is waiting for the announcement about the safety protocols. Maxwell nodded. Tell them we'll be right there. He turned to John and Kevin. Would you both join me for the press conference? This achievement belongs to all of us. Together, the 3 men walked toward the press room. Through the windows, they could see the Maxwell Aerospace testing grounds where a full-scale prototype of the Mars habitat gleamed in the sunlight. Soon, that same design would be built on the Red Planet, ready to welcome the first human visitors. Do you ever think about what would have happened if we hadn't confronted you that night? John asked Maxwell as they walked. Maxwell was quiet for a moment. I was so focused on being first to Mars that I might have cut corners. History is full of explorers who moved too fast and paid with their lives. He shook his head. But that's not going to be our story. As they entered the press room, cameras flashed and reporters called out questions. Maxwell stepped to the podium with John and Kevin beside him. The room fell quiet as he began to speak. 3 months ago, a conversation on live television changed the direction of space exploration. Today, I'm proud to announce that Maxwell Aerospace, in collaboration with John Rivers and the AI Safety Foundation, has completed the integration of the Human Priority Protocol into all our systems. He continued, explaining in simple terms what the new safety measures meant and how they would protect future astronauts. As he spoke, Kevin looked out at the reporters and cameras, knowing that millions of people would hear this message. The confrontation that had begun on Tech Tonight had led not to destruction but to creation. The silent studio of 3 months ago had given way to a global conversation about how technology should serve humanity's deepest values. And somewhere on Mars, waiting for the first humans to arrive, robots would soon begin building a home among the stars, a home designed not just with technical brilliance but with wisdom and care for human life.